everyone, and welcome to my weekly training, weekly live this week. And today I'm just going to chat and dive a little bit deeper on those vanity metrics, and they do come along with Pinterest too. A lot of times we get caught up in the vanity metrics in terms of, our followers on Instagram and having those big numbers because it looks good. And the truth is figuring out what is behind the numbers. What is behind those numbers that we put so much emphasis on, and do they really matter? So when it comes to Pinterest, there's a couple of vanity metrics that, yes, do play a part and can play a part in your overall strategy, but it's one of those things where you don't want to get caught up in just the number and having the highest number possible, because that's not what matters. So with Pinterest, it's your followers and your monthly views. Both of those do represent a piece of your overall strategy and how Pinterest is growing in your business, but they don't really represent at the core of how your account is necessarily performing in terms of like conversions. So when we look at the follower number on Pinterest, some people really work on growing their following, but you want to make sure that you are not just growing the number for the sake of growing a number. The key is to remember that it's just a number. When you're starting to work on your account with any new Pinterest account, you have a certain number, especially with that monthly views on your account, that starts in a certain range. And of course, when you start to put some effort into growing your account, you're publishing content consistently, that monthly view number likely is going to increase. But since it's the first number that we see on that on your profile, it's one that we tend to put a lot of emphasis on. But it's not necessarily one that can represent the conversions of what's going on behind the scenes. You can have millions of monthly views, but only be getting a handful of conversions, a handful of saves, a handful of clicks on your pins. And that is not where you want to be. Yes, it looks amazing. You've got 1 million monthly views on your Pinterest, on your profile. So it looks like your account is doing well. But when you dive into the analytics and you're only getting a fraction or a handful of people actually clicking through, there's something off with that picture. So that's why it's just a number. So realizing that it's just a number and understanding that we want that number to be a quality number, not just a high quantity number. And the same rings true with your followers on your account. You don't want to just pull in followers and get that number of followers to increase just for the sake of growing that number, because you run the risk of pulling people into your world that just aren't engaged. So if you've and the same as with the example of that high monthly views, if you've got a ton of monthly views on your account, but you're getting a handful of clicks, those monthly views, what Pinterest is pulling into your account, they're not engaged and they're not taking action. So they're not necessarily 1 million like numbers worth of people that are your people. It's just a number. So just that's something I want to set straight, because I feel like, especially on social media, we trend towards putting emphasis on that follower count, on that follower number. And then the same comes true with Pinterest. People put a lot of emphasis on the followers and your monthly views. And the way that those numbers are showcased on your profile doesn't necessarily paint a true picture of what's going on behind the scenes. So that's my first point, is that those numbers, those followers, it's just a number. Yes, that plays a role in your overall strategy and it can play a role in your growth, but the key is making sure that you put the right emphasis into it. So the second point I wanted to make is figuring out what matters most when it comes to those numbers is your engagement. Same thing with Instagram. You want, rather than having 100,000 followers, 10,000 followers that don't care about who you are, versus having 1,000 people that love you and will engage with you and follow you and are your people, that is a better scenario than 10,000 people that don't really care what you're putting out. Same thing is true on Pinterest. You can grow those followers, but if they're not engaged and they're not taking action on your account, what is the point in having that number? On the outside, it looks great, but on the back end, behind the scenes, it's not doing you any favors. Your account isn't growing. You're not getting those conversions. You're not getting those customers and those clients in the door when you're focused on just those vanity metrics and building that following. So making sure that you understand that when you are growing that following, or you're trying to build following or your followers on Pinterest, it really comes down to being a little bit more organic about it and making sure that you're pulling in people that are going to be engaged. So stop with the follow trains, stop with the just following people for the sake of following people, and really build those connections. Yes, you can do a little bit on Pinterest to build those connections, but also think in terms of outside of the platform, the people that you are engaging with, the people that you are connecting with. That is another way that you can start to build some of that following off of the platform. Yes, there's apps you can put on your blog post that can help pull people from Pinterest or from your blog back to Pinterest or to follow you on Pinterest. And that can work. But then again, if you're going to go that route and have an app help you with that, just make sure that the people that are ending up following you on Pinterest are your people. So just making sure that you want those followers to be engaged with you. You want them to care about what they're putting out or what you're putting out, and you want them to engage. You want them to save your pins. You want them to like your even like your pins. You want them to click on your pins. Because if everything goes unseen and nobody cares what you're doing, then it's just a number, and it's really not having an impact on what's going on behind the scenes in your Pinterest account, and ultimately in what Pinterest is doing for your business. So with that being said, the third point I wanted to bring up is just talking about how that following helps contribute to your overall picture on Pinterest. So what Pinterest does is when you start to publish your material, your pins to your content, Pinterest does show it to your followers. So they distribute things initially to your followers to see what their reactions are. So if you've got a big following on Pinterest, and your account has been pretty stable, you've been pretty consistent, Pinterest is going to automatically distribute your pins to those followers. So those followers, if they choose to engage or not engage, that's how Pinterest figures out how to then circulate your content beyond your followers. So if you have 1,000 people that just don't care about what you're putting out on Pinterest, they aren't really involved, they're not really invested, they're not really engaged, every time you put something out, you're not going to get that engagement on your content from Pinterest, and that's going to impact and can impact your distribution and how Pinterest will then roll it out to the rest of the platform. So how do you go about making sure that you are getting that good amount of distribution? So number one, it does go back to your original strategy with your keywords, your images, and creating content that is relevant and useful and valuable to your followers, to your people, and to your ideal clients. That's how you're going to get seen. And then making sure anybody that you do have that are a part of your following, that they are engaged, they are a part of your people, they are your ideal clients. You want those people in your world. You don't want random people as a part of your following, because that's not going to help overall with your distribution and getting your content seen, because they aren't likely long-term going to be engaged with what you're putting out there. So my advice is focus on the strategy. Your emphasis and overall focus on Pinterest shouldn't be on getting followers for the sake of getting followers, or getting likes, or any of the other tactics that you might see when it comes similar to what you might do on social media. Focus on that strategy first. Figure out your content, figure out your sales funnels, figure out your customer journey, and then figure out the keywords you're going to encompass around your profile and in the content that you're creating. Figure out the journey that the customer goes on from the moment they see you on your pins to when they get to your website, and have a plan for them when they get to your website so that they then will take that next step with you. Because again, we want to make sure we're growing the account. So we're getting those monthly views, we're getting people seeing, we're getting those impressions, we're getting seen, we're getting visible. But what we want at the end of the day are those conversions. We want people saving and engaging on our content. We want people clicking on our pins. And ultimately, we want people taking that next step with us. So that is what's most important. And then, yes, you can mix in that following. You can start to grow your audience a little bit on Pinterest, but I would make sure it's done a little bit more organically through connections that you make, and make it a little bit more authentic versus relying on a third-party app or just joining a follow train just to build that number. So point of today is stop with the vanity metrics, because at the end of the day, your metrics, they don't paint the overall clear picture of what's going on behind the scenes. Focus on the strategy. That strategy is what's going to get you those conversions, get you those customers, and get you those clients in your door. So I hope this is helpful. I hope you guys have a great day. If this was helpful for you, drop an emoji below. Drop any questions below. I am always happy to answer those questions. And if you have any questions about Pinterest and how Pinterest could work for your business, please feel free to reach out, send me a DM. I am happy to answer your questions or maybe even hop on a coffee chat. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you soon.